take a moment to look back on economic history in America through the rose-tinted glasses of innovation. You will see the same history, but with a softer tone and a vision of hope. The story is told with a clear focus on innovation. Once you experience the economic tides of innovation, you will understand the ocean of opportunity in a new light. Terrible times are no match for innovation. A number of great companies have been started during economic downturns. For the purposes of this book, I limited my criteria for what I call a great company to those that have continued operations or brand equity through 2009. This eliminates many great innovations, but nevertheless provides a substantial list of companies for the purposes of demonstrating the powers of innovation. Before we begin our excursion, let's develop a semantic guide to the evolution of the terminology of terrible times. As America has matured, so has the economic language we use to describe bad economic times. The softening of the language is an effort to calm and restore the confidence of people, which plays a huge part in the ebbs and flows of the economy. In the 1700s, the preferred description of terrible times was panic. It's a word that describes the frenzied scramble to keep the economy afloat. This term stayed in vogue for a while, but lost ground to the dual terms of depression and recession. These terms have varying degrees of difference, but describe the same kind of economic disaster. That is, until you precede the word depression with the adjective great. At that point, you have reached the pinnacle of terrible times terminology. There can and will only be one period in U.S. history described as the Great Depression, 1929 to 1939. This term should describe the worst of the terrible times. It is the standard by which all terrible times terminology will be compared in the future. Accordingly, we have retreated to the reliable term recession, but have introduced even more palatable situation-specific expressions such as oil crisis or bursting the dot-com bubble. Furthermore, if we must admit that there is a recession, we tend to understate the label in a sort of economic optimism. You might hear terms like downturn or slowdown. We even find terms that refuse to admit the downward trend, such as a sideways movement. For the purposes of this book, I really don't care what you call it. Whatever term gives you more comfort is the one I recommend. But please understand there is not a dime's bit of difference between them as it relates to innovation. Note: unemployment rates weren't calculated by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics prior to 1929. All sections on post-1929 recessions will include that data. Panic of 1797. 1797 to 1800. Sailing back to 1797 allows us to experience the first recession in the United States. America was a new nation back then, and this turbulent time wreaked havoc on its young economy. The major culprit was the Bank of England. The bank was already reeling from the effects of the French Revolutionary War between England and France. This war had caused deflationary repercussions in England. The bank was tied into American commercial and real estate markets and caused the first major disruptions in America's fledgling economic system. As the American economy began its first battle with a recession, innovations and startup companies were flourishing. Of course, this young country needed financial services, specifically banking and investment assistance, to fund and foster business growth. Two companies would emerge from this recession to create financial forces that would impact the American economy for generations to come. Great companies that started during this panic include what would eventually become the largest American bank, Chase Manhattan, and the first company to organize an IPO, Alex, Brown and Sons. Depression of 1807 to 1814.